I've always found it difficult to focus. It's never been as simple as just turning off my phone or going to the library or just uninstalling all of the games from my computer. To be truly focused at a scientific level is actually rather complex, but in this video I'll make it easy for you by sharing a step-by-step tutorial on how I focus all day in medical school. And it all starts from the moment you get out of bed. You see, from the moment you start your day, you have a choice. 1, get up and get started with your work, or 2, get up, open your phone and start watching YouTube videos. Yeah, I see you. If you're anything like me, you've probably been watching YouTube on more mornings than you would like, but the reason that we struggle to get out of bed is quite intriguing. Let's rewind and pause here, because the day-defining moment actually starts far beyond this point. Getting out of bed in the morning is already difficult, and I find that the times where I struggle to get out of bed the most are the times where I have doubts about the work that I'm doing or about myself. Maybe I doubt whether the work that I'm doing is actually amounting to any type of results in the long term, or sometimes I might doubt whether I have the capabilities to do what I need to do. Issues with doubt, values, and self-esteem aren't just limited to studying, and it's only natural that if we feel like we aren't worth anything, or if we don't have value, or if we have a low self-esteem, that it will be really difficult to get out of bed in the morning. I would highly recommend going to get some professional support for any mental health issues that you might have. But if you want to try and do something right now, I would encourage you to pause the video and try to answer all of the questions that I put on the screen really honestly. Doing so might encourage you to find some of the things that really stop you from getting out of bed in the morning, some of those root causes that you can try to fix slowly but surely. Now that we're out of bed, how we get to our desk is extremely important. And let me illustrate that to you by telling you a story of a ship captain named Hernan Cortez. Hernan Cortez was a ship captain in the early 16th century, and during his conquest of the Aztec Empire, he ran into a massive problem, which was that him and his soldiers were massively outnumbered and the challenge seemed far too great. In response, Cortez did something everyone thought was insane. He burnt down all of his own ships to give his men no option but to fight with all of their resolve, because if they didn't win, they would never be able to return home. The way this relates to studying is that just as Cortez forced his men to fight with all of their resolve, you can force yourself to study by putting something on the line to lose. I know it can sound dramatic, but if it worked for Cortez and his men, it can work for you. As a medical student, I have a 3-step plan that I use to get myself to my desk. Step 1 is to have it set in stone. Instead of telling myself that I'll study at some time on Wednesday night, I always like to tell myself something specific, like I will study heart failure from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Wednesday night. Doing this means that when it comes around to 5 p.m, I know that I need to start studying. And it also means that after 7 p.m, I'm not guilting myself into feeling like I need to do more work. This really helps decrease the amount of motivation I need to start studying, and it also helps me to have a much better work-life balance. The second step is to burn the boats. Find an accountability partner who you know is like-minded and has similar ambitions to you, and ask them to push you to do better in everything that you do. For example, you can tell them that if you don't do that work from 5 to 7 p.m. on Wednesday night, that you'll pay them $100. Just the fact that there's a possible consequence there means that you're far more likely to actually get started and do the work that you need to do. The third step is to use minimum viable goals. What this means is that if I'm procrastinating on my phone, on my bed, for example, I will think about the smallest possible step that I can take to actually get to my desk. For example, if I'm on my phone like this and I'm watching TikToks, what I'll say to myself is that all I have to do is just put my phone down, and then after that I can stop. And then after I put my phone down, I might think to myself, all I have to do is just get out of bed. And once I get out of bed, I'll think to myself, okay, all I have to do is just walk to my desk, but once I walk to my desk, I can go all the way back, I can go back on my phone, I can watch TikToks again. I basically continue this cycle in my head, telling myself to just do the next smallest possible thing that can take me closer to my goal. So after getting to my desk, it might be, oh, I'll just open up my books and my laptop, that's it. But then after I open that up, I might say to myself, well, I've opened up my laptop now, I might as well just read one line, just one line. And eventually, a lot of the time, I'm able to get myself to study for at least 5 to 10 minutes. And in my opinion, if you went from procrastinating and probably doing no work at all to studying for at least 10 minutes, that's a win. This method might sound a bit crazy, but I can promise you that it works, so try it for yourself. So we went through all of that and we're finally at our desk, and that is often the hardest part of studying. Now that we're here, our goal is to stay here for as long as possible and to be as productive as we possibly can be. Our phone's ability to distract us is a well-researched phenomenon, and if we really want to study effectively, we need to have our phones out of sight. Our parents never had phones to manage, and it's one of many distractions that are completely new to our generation of technology. It's really hard to stay on top of all of the possible things that can distract you when studying, and one of the best ways to get on top of it is using a distraction cheat sheet. Get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and keep it with you when you're studying. If you ever get distracted during a study session, write down the thing that distracted you on that piece of paper. What you can do after your study session is on the right-hand side of the paper, write down how you'll actually remove all of those distractions from your environment. Having a place to write down what distracts you helps you realize when you are distracted a lot better, and then also having to critically think through how you're going to remove those distractions is a really great exercise to control your own sense of responsibility. Having a piece of paper to write down your distractions on when you're studying firstly helps you to be a lot more aware of when you do get distracted, and then actually being able to remove those means that you're very actively taking out distractions from your environment. That being said, if you feel like your brain is going numb every time you sit down to study, no amount of removing distractions will really help you focus. If you think about when you play a sport or when you learn a new skill for the first time, it's often really rare that you get distracted and your attention is held really closely by that thing. Studying should feel like you're playing a game or you're playing a sport or you're learning something for the first time, because often you are. And the way that you achieve that is through your curiosity. Our brains are problem-solving machines, and your study should be shaped by your curiosity. As you're studying, you should constantly be writing down questions about what it is that you're curious about and where your brain wants to take you next. The times where I study best are the times where I'm not just trying to memorize an entire wall of information, but when the information that I'm consuming has relevance and it's important in the grand scheme of things. You can apply this by making anything that you're learning fun by relating it to a celebrity you know or something that you might have experienced in real life. It's very cliche, but if you love what you're learning, you'll never have to study a day in your life. And I honestly think it's very true. Finally, turning focus into a habit is one of the best things that you can do to turn yourself into a productivity machine. The first thing you can do is treat the amount of time that you spend studying as a game that you can improve in. When you start studying, start a stopwatch that counts up and measure how long you're able to study for without getting distracted. Create a spreadsheet where you can track how long you're able to study for without getting distracted, and then over a week you can see what your personal best was and whether you've been improving each day. Even if you don't improve that much, you can challenge yourself to progress and do better each time, and it's a way to gamify how long you're actually studying for. The second thing that you can do is kind of unsexy, but it is to meditate. On most days, I try to meditate for 20 minutes each morning, and meditation is one of those things that is very, very, very good at improving your focus. If you know me, I mention meditation in almost every single one of my videos, and I think it's for good reason, and if you don't do it, you should do it. It has made me a much, much better person, and if you just want a quick way to start, you can just get an app like Headspace or Calm and try to download those and do a free trial to see how you go. The third thing that you can do to make focus a habit is to reward yourself at the end of a focus session. When you finish focusing for a certain period of time, pick one reward that you only give yourself for focusing. For example, I have a game called Tap Titans on my phone, and every time I finish studying for a certain period of time, I play that game straight after to sort of condition my brain and classically condition myself to associate the feeling of playing that game with the feeling of focusing. Over time, this ends up becoming sort of a superpower, and you end up wanting to study just because you want to play the game rather than, not wanting to study at all. And the final tip is that when you study, you need to be studying in the flow state, and you can find out about that in this video here.